Hey, good evening, ladies and gentle drunks. My name is Kevin Olson. I'm a recovered alcoholic. I'd like to welcome you all to the fourth dimension. Big book study, that is. I'm glad you guys are all here. I know I'm certainly glad I'm here. I never feel more alive than when I'm sharing the miracle of God's recovery in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous through the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous that I discovered in a book called Alcoholics Anonymous. And let's share that book together tonight, shall we? As we always do, we will kick off with the set aside prayer. It goes a little something like this. Sing
Yeah.
along, you know the words.
Hi.
God, please help me to set aside everything I think I know about you, about me, about my fellow man, and about the 12 steps. And please allow me to gain a fresh new vision, perspective, and understanding of what you, what me, what my fellow man, and the 12 steps are all about. Amen. And as this is the fourth dimension big book study, I always like to read the two parts of our book that refer to the fourth dimension. So first of all, on page 8 in Bill's story, it says that I was to know happiness, peace, and usefulness in a way of life that is incredibly more wonderful as time passes. I was soon to be catapulted into what I like to call the fourth dimension of existence. Catapulted. And now on page 25, Bill Wilson writes that we have found much of heaven and we have been rocketed into a fourth dimension of existence of which we had not even dreamed. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to be catapulted. We're going to be rocketed. And for the sake of the tradition and the custom of the fourth dimension big book study, everyone who will, please put one hand up like this. And everybody, please put another hand up like this. And everybody go, oh yeah. All right, Merry Christmas, everybody. Merry Christmas. I have a special fondness in my heart for the celebration of Christmas because I'm not in the psych ward, and I spent Christmas in the psych ward one year. It was quite interesting. I play guitar. I led the psych ward Christmas caroling that year. That was my note of distinction for the year, about 1999. I spent the psych ward, yeah, performing Christmas carols with all my colleagues in the psych ward, and I'm glad I don't have to spend this Christmas in the psych ward. I'd much rather be here with you all in the fellowship of the Spirit here in the fourth dimension. Which some days, as we all know, Alcoholics Anonymous can be just one step away from a psych ward, but I'm as crazy as you all are. So anyway, I'm happy to be here and happy to be sharing this time with you. Hello to Corey. Great to see you, Corey. Very good. Corey's logging in from Ontario, traveling with family right now. And, Christmas can be a difficult time, man, for all of us, you know. I don't do well with Christmas. Let me tell you, like as a recovered alcoholic, getting through Christmas sober, the last 16 Christmases I've been sober. I'm grateful for that. But it doesn't mean that alcoholic Kevin, an individual I like to call Little King Kevin, doesn't mean that Little King Kevin doesn't show up and start, lighting fires and creating Christmas tantrums and so on and so forth. I'm sure none of you have ever done anything like that, but for me, that's a very real thing that I'm capable of doing. So anyway, I'm glad to be here with you guys. I'm glad to be in the fellowship of the Spirit. I'm glad to be sharing this big book with you guys tonight. And we're going to kick off. We're going to be on step 3 tonight, getting into that. So let's go to the chapter, how it works. Let's just get right into it. Let's go to page 58. And if you guys can get us into page 58 and get lined up there, I'm going to I just have to take care of one thing.
Hey everyone.
Hey, David.
Hey guys.
Good to see you.
Yeah.
Are you still in Calgary or are you gone?
I'm packing. I leave in the morning.
Right.
Yeah, gone early. The crowd coming for dinner, so I may not be here for the whole meeting.
Hey, sorry about that, guys. I've got people just showing up at my house right now for Christmas. Grateful for that. Grateful to be surrounded by family and friends, and I have family from the fellowship, not literal family, but someone that I consider a brother who's coming down to spend Christmas with us, and he just arrived. So anyway, let's get into chapter 5, the chapter How It Works. Obviously, guys, I guess what I want to say is right now this first part of how it works in chapter 5 is really, I like to think of it as kind of a no man's land, or an in-between point between step 2 and step 3. Okay, we are not on step 3 yet. When we're reading How It Works, we're not on step 3 yet. It'll be very evident. Bill will make it very clear when we start step 3. What we're doing right now, what Bill Wilson is doing, being a square dealer that he is giving us an idea of what is going to be asked of us prior to making this decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. Okay? Prior to making that decision, he's going to tell us what is going to be required of us. What do we have to do? What are the requirements to live this spiritual way of life? As we read many times in We Agnostics, to be faced with an alcoholic death or learn to live life on a spiritual basis are not easy alternatives to face. Okay? And what he's going to show us is what living life on a spiritual basis actually means. That's what we're reading when we read How It Works. Now, there's a lot of stories about how the chapter How It Works became almost the universal reading that Alcoholics Anonymous meetings kick off with. There's a lot of folklore around it. There's a lot of stories around it. The story that I've heard is that there was an individual who was traveling from Texas to Los Angeles, and he had been a sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous in Texas. He was traveling to Los Angeles. He got drunk on the way, he had this big book. He communicated with someone in Texas, and they suggested to him that he start a meeting. He got together with some other folks there. There was no Alcoholics Anonymous at that time. He had a copy of this book. There was a chapter titled How It Works, and he said, well, this seems like as good a thing as any for us to start reading. And so they started reading that, and that became a tradition. And as with a lot of things in Alcoholics Anonymous, things that happen in Southern California sometimes become popular all over the world. So anyway, I think one of the things, though, is that this chapter, How It Works, we read it all the time, and so I think we lose sight of what a lot of it is saying. So I'm gonna weigh in on some of what is written here in this chapter, and some things that I think to be true about this reading that we do at almost every Alcoholics Anonymous meeting on the planet. Out of curiosity, we got people here online from all over the place right now. Has anyone been to a meeting where they didn't read How It Works at the beginning of the meeting? And if so, what did they read instead? What did they read instead of reading How It Works? Anyone, show of hands. Anyone? Richard, what were the readings they did instead, I wonder?
Well, we do a Joe McHugh book study, and we don't read How It Works when the meeting starts. We read the book. There's another meeting that I go to, Day Counters, and these are rarities. They don't read How It Works either. It's kind of a three-topic, what do you call them? Disgusting something meeting.
Three-topic disgusting meeting?
Yeah. It's not the greatest meeting in town, but those are a couple examples, if that helps.
The least they could do is read How It Works, man. Yeah, right. And I hear you about the Joe McHugh Big Book Study for sure. One of the things that I'll point out, and Fred M., I see your hand up there. I'd love to hear from you as well. One of the things I would point out about a big book study is that a big book study is not necessarily a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, nor is it necessarily a group of Alcoholics Anonymous. Certainly, this big book study, the Fourth Dimension Big Book Study, is not an Alcoholics Anonymous group at all. Okay, this study does not have a GSR. This study is not connected to the general service structure of Alcoholics Anonymous at all. Okay, so there is a difference between a study and a group. Richard, I know that you know that. I just wanted to kind of flesh that out for some others, and that's why we don't read how it works at the beginning of this meeting. Fred M., love to hear what you got to say.
Yeah, the meetings that I go to in this area, every one of them reads the preamble.
Just the
Okay.
preamble, that's all you read, or do you read how it works as well?
And then, depending on the meeting, we'll read the steps or the traditions or the promises.
But not how it works. Very interesting.
No.
That's good.
No.
That's a rare a pocket of uniqueness, I'll say, in Ohio, I guess, where you guys don't read how it works. Virtually every AA meeting I've ever been to kicks off with how it works. So thank you for sharing that, Fred. Anyone else? Gail.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. Gail Alcoholic from Kelowna, BC. Our noon meeting here in Kelowna, which is decades old, they have a rotating basis. Sometimes they'll read how it works, and then sometimes they will read the chapter more on alcoholism.
Interesting. Well, that's great.
Yeah, that more about alcoholism. That's not my favorite one because more about alcoholism just talks about alcohol. To me, how it works is inclusive in the solution. But anyway, yeah, it's a noon group and they read more about alcoholism, how it works, and then there's another one that they read too. So, but it's on a rotating basis.
I'm with you 100%. I think that there's absolute gold in the reading of how it works. I think the problem is we get so used to it. Anybody here ever seen like Peanuts or like Charlie Brown? You know, when the adults start talking and it's like wah 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 wah. That's how, honestly, and I'll speak for myself, that's how it can be for me when people are going through the readings at the beginning of the meeting, you know, and I'm still on my phone or still screwing around with a cup of coffee and I'm just not paying attention to how it works. But there's absolute gold in there. And so I want to just kind of do a little bit of a deeper dive tonight into how it works than we might normally. One of the things that's unique about Primary Purpose Group, my home group, and the group of several of us here, is that we read how it works, but we read how it works, a version of it that's called the original manuscript, which is how Bill Wilson originally wrote it prior to it being reviewed by the first 100 members, and Dr. Silkworth and Sam Schumacher and several others kind of softened the language a little bit. And Brad, I don't want to put you on the spot. Do you have the original manuscript? All right. Well,
I'm ready.
What I want to do is read. We'll read the original manuscript as we do at Primary Purpose Group. And when we founded PPG in 2009, people took a lot of exception to the fact that we read this at the beginning. Some people really didn't like it. Some people, for a time, refused to come to our group because we kicked off with this reading. And said, you can't do that. It's not AA conference approved, to which we would simply just point to tradition 4 and let them know that we could start the meeting off doing the hokey pokey if we wanted to. It doesn't, every group's autonomous. We can do whatever we want. There are no rules in AA. There's no police who's going to come and, you can't report us to the grapevine and have them come and shut us down. And we like this version of how it works because of its directness. And we say that right in our preamble at the beginning of the meeting. So you'll note some interesting differences. So read along in your big book, read along with the the manuscript as it is in the big book, and Brad will read the original manuscript, and we'll see some of the differences. There's really just a couple things in here that I think are very important that I really want to point out. Over to you, Brad.
Yeah, we have a young people's group, Friday night young people's group here in Kelowna that reads that one too also.
Awesome. Good. I love to hear it.
Hey everybody, Brad Sillito, recovered alcoholic. This is the original manuscript of how it works. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our directions. Those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to this simple program, usually men and women who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. There are such unfortunates. They are not at fault. They seem to have been born that way. They are naturally incapable of grasping and developing a way of life which demands rigorous honesty. Their chances are less than average. There are those, too, who suffer from grave emotional and mental disorders, but many of them do recover if they have the capacity to be honest.
Okay, so one of the questions that I get a lot of times, I'm sure some of you, if you sponsor a lot of people over a long period of time.
Yeah, it would be.
Sorry, everyone, please just make sure that you're muted. Thank you. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Rob. Okay, one of the questions that you'll get a lot from people is if you sponsor people for any period of time, especially if you get guys who are coming back to AA, you're inevitably going to be asked that question. And it usually sounds something like this. Some guy who's just relapsed and coming back, he's relapsed again. He'll come back and say, do you think that I might be one of those people who's just constitutionally incapable of being honest with myself? Okay, you get that a lot. And to which I reply, yeah, I think that you probably are. Okay. And what I tell them is that I am constitutionally incapable of being honest with myself as well. We are all constitutionally incapable of being honest with ourselves. Isn't that what Dr. Silkworth tells us? We are unable to distinguish the true from the false. Without what? Without God's help. And thank God that I am not reliant upon my own constitution to get sober. Thank God that God is more powerful than my constitution. That's what I'll tell anyone who asks me, do you think I might be constitutionally incapable? My answer will be yes. I think I am too. I think we all are without God's help. God is more powerful than our constitution. God has the power. Okay. I don't become powerful in AA. We learned that last week, right? Lack of power is my dilemma. Lack of power is my dilemma today. I am not staying sober and learning to be honest on my own power. I have to have God's help. Okay. You guys with me on that? Does that make sense? Okay. And the other thing, and then I'll cut him a break and I'll say, and look, man, here's the other thing. If you are asking that question, that tells me already that you're on the right track. Okay. You're at least identifying that there is a problem, and now we can start to apply this solution. Okay. So that's what I wanted to say about, people will often ask, do you think I might be one of those people who's constitutionally incapable of being honest with myself? That's how I respond to that. Now, let's talk quickly about people who are suffer from grave emotional and mental disorders, okay? Because there are a lot of them. There are a lot of them. This is not Well People Anonymous, okay? This is Alcoholics Anonymous. And you are going to encounter and you are going to sponsor people who have psychiatric and emotional disorders and personality disorders galore. Okay, that is going to happen for sure. And here's what I think about it, is that if you take something like depression, for example, is it possible that depression is a side effect of the disease of alcoholism? Can depression be a symptom of the disease of alcoholism? Yes, absolutely. That said, can depression also become its own separate organic brain disorder? Yes, definitely it can. Okay. My suggestion to anyone is that we apply the solution that we have in Alcoholics Anonymous and see if that treats the depression. If not, then my suggestion, and one of the first things I'll say with any of my sponsees, is you need to get a family doctor. Get a GP, get a doctor. That has everything to do with step 3, brothers and sisters, in terms of me taking care of myself and listening and taking direction from someone else and not living in fear about these things. Go see a doctor and see what the medical estimate of your mental health condition might be. But don't do that prior to applying the solution of Alcoholics Anonymous first. When the spiritual malady is overcome, then we straighten out mentally and physically and all the other areas. Yes, but on page 133, I'm going to paraphrase it. We're not going to go there right now. On page 133, it does say And you might want to make a note. Grave mental and emotional disorders, see page 133. On page 133, it says that God has abundantly supplied the world with fine doctors, psychiatrists, and practitioners of various kinds. We ought never belittle a good doctor. Their services can be instrumental in helping someone to overcome alcoholism and their problems, get out of their difficulties. Unfortunately, I hear a lot of belittling going on in AA. I am not here to say that therapy is not powerful for a solution for many, many other human ailments. What I'm saying is therapy and taking antipsychotic medication and all that stuff is not a solution to alcoholism. I needed to treat my alcoholism first and then go attend to my grave emotional and mental disorders. I see some nodding heads. Am I among friends? You guys with me on that? You guys with me on that? You see what I'm saying? Okay, I think it's important to talk about. Okay. Back to you, Brad.
Hey, Kevin, Brett raised the notion of thinking the original manuscript said never have we seen a person fail. Do you want to touch on that real quick?
Sure, that is mythical. That's just AA folklore, like a lot of things. Bill Wilson wrote, I think the Grapevine article was like in 1972, something to that effect, where Bill Wilson put it to rest that no, he did not intend to write never. He always wrote rarely. He wrote rarely specifically because he knows how defiant alcoholics are and felt that never would have come on too strong, even in his original manuscript. Maybe Rob next week can give us a little bit more information on that. Anyway, Brad, back to you. And thank you for the question, by the way. Did that come from Fred? Brad asked the question?
No, from Brett.
Brett, okay. Thank you for the question, Brett. I appreciate it.
Our stories disclose in a general way what we used to be like, what happened, and what we are like now. If you have decided you want what we have and are willing to go to any length to get it, then you are ready to follow directions. At some of these, you may balk. You may think you can find an easier, softer way. We doubt if you can. With all the earnestness at our command, we beg of you to be fearless and thorough from the very start. Some of us have tried to hold on to our old ideas, and the result was nil until we let go absolutely.
Okay, so I just want to say, when we talk about our stories, what we used to be like, what happened, and what we're like today, the hardest thing there to describe to people is what happened. It's easy to talk about what it was like. It's pretty easy to talk about what it's like today. The hardest thing to explain to people is what happened. How do you explain a spiritual experience? There's a great writer, Jordan Peterson. However you may feel about him on the political side of things, I think he says a lot of great stuff about the spiritual realm as well. And one of the things he said is that I'm going to try to say this correctly because I think it's brilliant. The evidence for the existence of a spiritual experience is irrefutable. The evidence for the existence of a spiritual experience is irrefutable, but it is also inexplicable. Okay? And so here we are trying to explain the inexplicable. What happened? What I say to guys who are going to go give their first talk at PPG, I know some of you guys, Corey, I know you did your first 10-minute talk a while ago. I know Charles gave a great talk not long ago. Maggie did her 10-minute talk. I like to say Shiva's done some talks. Great. All of you guys, I love you. What happened is the 12 steps. That's what happened. Okay? What it was like, we can explain. What it's like today, easy to explain. What happened to us is a spiritual awakening as a result of the 12 steps. That's what happened. Okay? And that's what we need to focus on in that part of our story. Okay, I think that's, and then it says that some of these we balked. What does it mean to balk? At some of these we balked. Balking is, what it means is I start and then instantly pull away. Okay, and there's a phrase in baseball, when a pitcher balks, pitcher starts to wind up and then stops, and it's illegal. Guy takes a base if you do that. It's against the rules in baseball. You're not allowed to balk. Corey, you're a baseball fan. Did I get that right? That's what balking, when pitcher. Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you. I'm sure we got a lot of baseball fans here. And so feel free to correct me. Balking is when a pitcher starts throwing and then stops right away. And it's illegal. The guy takes a base. You can't do that. And we can't do it in AA. Okay. We can't start balking. At some of these we balked. Okay. And by the way, we're All of us are going to balk at one of the steps sooner or later, without question. None of us has maintained perfect adherence to these steps. We all know that, okay? Now, I just want to reiterate, and I want you guys to show me on your hand. I want to see every screen on. I want to see every hand, okay? If I am balking at one of the steps, one of the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, if I am balking at one of those steps, what step is my real problem? Cody, my man Cody knows. Okay, what step is my real problem? It's always a step 1 problem. It's not a step 3 problem. It's not a step 6 and 7 problem. It's not a step 9 problem. Okay, it is a step 1 problem. Okay, does that make sense to you guys? If I am balking at one of the steps, it is always a step 1 problem. Okay, and that's one of the important things. Oh, Jessica, that's so sweet. Is that Charlie in the background there? Hey, Charlie. Hi, Charlie. Everybody say hi, Charlie.
Charlie.
Hi, Charlie. Ah, that just made my day, Jessica. Yeah, that's awesome. Hi, Charlie. Merry Christmas, Charlie. Is Santa coming? When's Santa coming, Charlie? Soon. Okay, guys, always a step 1 problem, okay? Let's continue on, Brad. I'm going to spend this whole hour on how it works, I think, if I'm not careful. Jeez.
Remember that you are dealing with alcohol, cunning, baffling, powerful. Without help, it is too much for you. But there is one who has all power. That one is God. You must find him now.
You must find him now. That's how Bill originally wrote it. And I just came back from the State Line Conference in Las Vegas. Incredible. If you've never been to the State Line Conference of Alcoholics Anonymous in Los Angeles, they call it the Woodstock of AA. Some of the finest speakers in all of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's awesome. And one of the speakers was talking about Bill very, very, very rarely used the word must. And there are a few cases. And one of them is in concept 6 in the 12 concepts is what the speaker was talking about. But in this case, Bill originally said, you must find God now. Back to you, Brad.
Half measures will avail you nothing. You stand at the turning point. You throw yourself under his protection and care. With complete abandon. Now we think you can take it. Here are the steps we took, which are suggested as your program of recovery. 1, admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care and direction of God as we understood him. 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6, we're entirely willing that God remove all these defects of character. 7.
Step 7 here, guys. This is one of the things I really wish they would not have changed. What Brad is about to read, and you'll see why when he reads it in a moment, is I love this, Brad.
Humbly, on our knees.
On our knees, baby. On our knees. Humbly on our knees. All right, sorry.
That's all right. Humbly on our knees, asked him to remove our shortcomings, holding nothing back. 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make complete amends to them all. 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10, continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our contact with God, praying only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. 12, having had a spiritual experience as the result of this course of action, we tried to carry this message to others, especially alcoholics, and to practice these principles in all our affairs. You may exclaim, what an order, I can't go through with it. Do not be discouraged. No one among us has been able to maintain anything like perfect adherence to these principles. We are not saints. The point is that we are willing to grow along spiritual lines. The principles we have set down are guides to progress. We claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. Our description of the alcoholic, the chapter to the agnostic, and our personal adventures before and after have been designed to sell you 3 pertinent ideas. A, that you are alcoholic and cannot manage your own life. B, that probably no human power can relieve your alcoholism. C, that God can and will.
Okay, so there's a lot more that I would love to say about that, but I'm going to be mindful of time. I want to talk about these three pertinent ideas, okay, because they're very important. And I just want to clarify a couple of things about them. I cannot tell you how many times I have had people say to me, that is steps 1, 2, and 3. A, B, and C, steps 1, 2, and 3. And that is absolutely incorrect. Okay. I would like to clear that up for you all right now. A, that we were alcoholic and could not manage our own lives. That is step 1. B, that probably no human power could have relieved our alcoholism. That is also step 1. Okay. That is also step 1. No human power. My own power or the power of anyone else cannot get me sober. And for those of you who are interested, I will just say that idea, that second pertinent idea, which is also step 1, is really about 3 people. It's about Dr. Silkworth, who, try as he might, could not get Bill Wilson sober. It is about Carl Jung, who, even though, Dr. Silkworth knew what the problem was. The problem didn't get Bill Wilson sober. Self-knowledge did not get Bill Wilson sober. Knowing the cycle did not get Bill Wilson sober, did it? In and out of the town's hospital 4 times. Okay? Knowing the cycle did not get him sober. Carl Jung knew the solution. He knew that the solution was a vital spiritual experience. He told that to Roland Hazard. And yet knowing the solution was not enough to get Roland Hazard sober. So this idea that no human power could get us sober is also about Carl Jung, one of the greatest psychiatrists and therapists in the history of human civilization, could not get Roland Hazard sober. And finally, and most importantly, to all of you folks who are new or newer to Alcoholics Anonymous, it's important to point out that that second pertinent idea, that no human power could relieve our alcoholism, is about Lois Wilson, Bill Wilson's wife. That no matter how much she loved Bill, she could not get Bill Wilson sober. No human power can get us sober. So to all of you who are new in your first year and thinking about getting in a relationship, I want to tell you that although it may feel very good for a short period of time, it may even feel like you are safe again in the arms of love and having something like a spiritual awakening, no human power is the solution for our alcoholism, okay? And when I hear that second pertinent idea, those are the things that I think about. No doctor, no therapist, no love relationship was ever sufficient enough to overcome my alcoholism, okay? And now, see that God could and would if he were sought. What step is that? That is step 2, okay? So now, as I indicated, what Bill Wilson just did is laid out the 12 steps for our inspection, because now we are going to be asked to make this decision in step 3. Making a decision to turn our will and our life over to the care of God as we understood him. And we're going to talk about now what that means. But what the first 100 wanted to do was lay out the kit of spiritual tools for our inspection to then determine for ourselves if we want to make this decision, okay? So now it says being convinced of what? Being convinced of those 3 pertinent ideas. Now it says we were at step 3. Now, in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, now we are at step 3. This is where step 3 begins in our book. Brad, over to you.
Being convinced, we were at step 3, which is that we decided to turn our will and our life over to God as we understood him. Just what do we mean by that, and just what do we do? The first requirement is that we be convinced that any life run on self-will can hardly be a success. On that basis, we are almost always in collision with something or somebody, even though our motives are good.
One of the things I like to say here is that it's also very, it's a good way to reverse engineer. If I want to understand self-will, and what is self-will, by the way? Self-will is me wanting what I want, when I want it, how I want it, any way that I want it, all of the time. Okay, I'm not asking for much, just everything I want whenever I want it all of the time. Is that too much to ask? Is that too much okay? And on that basis, living on that basis, it says we are almost always in collision with someone or something. Hey, Ali Pasha, nice to see you, man. Okay, now let me ask you a question. Just a quick show of hands. In the last week, have any of you, I'll answer the question too, have any of you felt as though you were in collision with someone else? Just show of hands. Quick. Anyone, collision with anyone? Anyone feel that they were in collision? Yeah, okay. If on the basis of self-will, I am almost always in collision with other people, it is also very good for me to learn, and we'll learn more about this in step 4. If I am in collision with other people, it stands to reason then I might be living in self-will, wanting what I want, how I want it, when I want it, all of the time. Is that too much to ask? Here I am in collision with other people. Okay? Because I treat life as though it's a movie of which I am the star, and all of the other human beings on planet Earth are just extras and cardboard cutouts and scenery of the Kevin Olsen show, of the Kevin Olsen movie. Okay? And don't you understand? No, they don't understand, because they're all the stars of their own show, man. Okay? And I don't consider others. I consider one thing and one thing only, and that is what little King Kevin wants all of the time. All of the time, I want what I want, when I want it, how I want it, delivered in the right Amazon package at the time when I get it, all of the time. That's what I want. And I step on the toes of my fellows and they retaliate, and I'm out in the world and I'm in collision with other people, and I collide with them and they start colliding with me, and I start causing pain and chaos in my own life. I start suffering and cause suffering in the others, in the lives of others, and I start to feel resentful, and I start to feel fear, and I start to tell lies to get my own way. I become restless, irritable, and discontent. I have an insane thought and I'm drunk. That's how that works, brothers and sisters. Okay? So let's go back to it. On that basis, we are almost always in collision with something or somebody, even though our motives are good. Okay? And we're going to talk about it here in a minute. Even when I'm a self-seeker, even when trying to be kind, it's because I'm a shapeshifter, man. I'm a chameleon. Clancy used to say we're 100-yard dash specialists. For 100 yards, I can pretend to be anything you need, anything you want, so long as I am getting my way. If you see me and I'm in a good mood, it's because I'm getting my way, typically, okay? Now, one of the nice things is that over time, I've been able to align my self-will with God's will. And a lot of the time when I'm getting my way, my will is aligned with God's will, thank God. And so things are a little more on track. But if I'm separating my will from God's will and I'm determined to get what I want, I am an agent of chaos in the world, man. You guys understand what I mean by that? I am an agent of chaos. I am a destructive force in the lives of others, man. I am a tornado when little King Kevin is out for blood and wanting to get what I want. Little King Kevin becomes displeased with the subjects of my kingdom, and I start looking for executions. Okay? That's how it is, man. And that's how I live. And living that way, man, I'm very, very close to getting drunk. Okay? That's how it is. Okay? Brad, back to you.
Most people try to live by self-propulsion. Each person is like an actor who wants to run the whole show, is forever trying to arrange the lights, the ballet, the scenery, and the rest of the players in his own way. If his arrangements would only stay put, if only people would do as he wished, the show would be great. Everybody, including himself, would be pleased. Life would be wonderful. In trying to make these arrangements, our actor may sometimes be quite virtuous. He may be kind, considerate, patient, generous, even modest and self-sacrificing. On the other hand, he may be mean, egotistical, selfish, and dishonest. But as with most humans, he is more likely to have varied traits.
Like I said, man, I'll be whatever it takes. I can be virtuous. I can be self-centered. I'll be whatever it takes to get what I want. Okay? And I'll behave in whatever way you need, because I'm a 100-yard dash specialist. For 100 yards, I can pretend to be anything. I can be a good employee. I can be a good son. I can be a good partner. I can be a good roommate. I can, for 100 yards, man, I can look real good. Okay, but it's hard to keep that up. And the problem is I hit an invisible finish line that no one else sees. And I have never learned that life is a marathon. Okay, because I don't finish anything. Alcoholics are quitters by nature. Okay, things get hard, things stop going my way, and I just quit and I give up and I blame them. Okay, that's how I've been my whole life, man. Okay, and we can pretend to be anything so long as we're getting our way. Back to you, Brad.
What usually happens? The show doesn't come off very well. He begins to think life doesn't treat him right. He decides to exert himself more. He becomes, on the next occasion, still more demanding or gracious, as the case may be. Still, the play does not suit him. Admitting he may be somewhat at fault, he is sure that other people are more to blame. He becomes angry, indignant, self-pitying. What is his basic trouble? Is he not really a self-seeker even when trying to be kind? Is he not a victim of the delusion that he can wrest satisfaction and happiness out of the world if he only manages well? Is it not evident to all the rest of the players that these are the things he wants? And do not his actions make each of them wish to retaliate, snatching all they can get out of the show? Is he not, even in his best moments, a producer of confusion rather than harmony? Our actor is self-centered, egocentric, as people like to call it nowadays.
Okay,
He
I
is
just
like-
want you guys to picture this. Bill Wilson is using this analogy of the actor several times, okay? Anyone here ever done any, like even high school, just been in a play during high school, anything at all? Just show of hands if you've ever done any acting, ever been on a stage of any kind. Okay, can you imagine what it would be like? You're an actor and you're in this play and you don't have the script. You don't know the other characters. You don't know the beginning, middle, and end. You're not really sure of anything in the show. And yet, what do I want to do? I want to start directing the whole thing. Okay. And I'm going to tell these actors where they need to go. And I'm going to start telling them what their lines are and so on and so forth. I'm going to correct them when they start saying the wrong lines. Okay. And so on and so forth. Can you imagine how that play would go? Absolute chaos. And yet that's what I'm doing in life. Okay. Because I'm not taking direction from anyone or anything. I am not connected to any sort of power whatsoever that is guiding my actions. I am the actor on the stage who is just causing absolute chaos amongst all the other actors, okay? And the other thing is that the other actors have not given me their moral authority to become the director. And so how do you think they feel when I start barking orders at them? What happens? Collision happens. Collision. They retaliate, okay? And I want to think, well, if they would just do what I say, everything would be fine, okay? And yet all that I'm doing is causing them to suffer. I'm causing myself to suffer. I'm an agent of chaos in that play. And this is how we are in our lives, okay? And if you've ever been on a stage, you'll know when those lights are on you, you look out in the audience, you'll see that it's darkness. You can't see anything out there, okay? You can't see out there. And yet, what do we know? Who is sitting out in the dark that we can't see? The director. The director is sitting out there in the dark. And the director, he's a writer-director. He's not just a director. He wrote the play. He wrote the play. He has the script. He knows all of the characters. He knows the beginning, the middle, and the end. He knows where all of the different players in this little play are coming and going. He knows where this whole thing is going to land. And we have to trust, and this is the deal, to start taking direction from that entity out there in the darkness we can't see, but we have to trust that there is a script, that there is a plan, that our Heavenly Father knows what the plan is, and trust that He is surely directing me as He is surely directing everyone else on that stage, and that this play is going exactly the way that He has predestined it to go in the script that He has written. Okay, you guys with me on that? We're going to come back to this director idea in a minute. Brad, back to you.
Our director is self-centered, egocentric, as people like to call it nowadays. He is like the retired businessman who lolls in the Florida sunshine in the winter, complaining of the sad state of the nation. The minister who sighs over the sins of the 20th century. Politicians and reformers who are sure all would be utopia if the rest of the world would only behave. The outlaw safecracker who thinks society has wronged him, and the alcoholic who has lost all and is locked up. Whatever our protestations, are not most of us concerned with ourselves, our resentments, or our self-pity?
Okay, this next paragraph, guys, there are several very, very important lines and paragraphs in this book, but this is truly one of the key pivotal paragraphs in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, okay? And we are going to touch back to this paragraph several times. One could say that this paragraph, more than any other, is the end of the problem and the beginning of our new life in the solution. This is really a critical turning point in Alcoholics Anonymous, this paragraph, okay? And there's two things that we're going to come back to this. This is still in step 3 in our book, but I want you to write in the margin, step 4, column 4, and then I also want you to write step 6 and 7. When we get to step 4, when we get to column 4, we are going to reference this paragraph. When we get to step 6 and 7, believe me, we are going to reference this paragraph, okay? And this is really a foundational paragraph where we start to truly change our perception of the world and our perspective, where we start to move from becoming childish victims into grown-ups beginning to accept reality for the first time in our lives. Okay? Brad, why don't you read it through us? Read us through it, please.
Selfishness, self-centeredness, that we think is the root of our troubles. Driven by 100 forms of fear, self-delusion, self-seeking, and self-pity, we step on the toes of our fellows and they retaliate. Sometimes they hurt us, seemingly without provocation. But we invariably find that at some time in the past, we have made decisions based on self, which later placed us in a position to be hurt.
We will come back and do a deeper dive on that paragraph when we get to step 4, column 4, just in a couple weeks from now. Okay? But just now, for now, know that selfishness and self-centeredness is the root of our troubles as alcoholics. Now, you may say to me, well, wait a minute, Kevin, you said that spiritual sickness was the root. The spiritual sickness precedes the insane mental thought that takes us into a relapse back into drinking. We take a drink and trigger the allergy and we're gone. Well, what about the spiritual sickness? Now you're saying it's selfishness and self-centeredness. I say to you, it's the exact same thing. That the outward manifestation of a spiritually sick human being is someone behaving in a selfish and self-centered manner. And so I don't sound too judgmental, let me say clearly, when you see me behaving in a selfish and self-centered manner, it is because I am suffering from the spiritual sickness, that I am not connected to our Heavenly Father. I am trying to live life on my own. I'm trying to drive my own show again. I'm starting to live in self-will, and I have become in collision with other people. And yet I want to believe that they're colliding with me. Okay? And that's not the case. This is where we start to do, we start to do a look back on how did this car crash happen? Okay? Who was really had the right of way and who actually, turned on the red light, okay? Who actually caused this crash? And this is what we're going to start to take a look at, okay? Back to you, Brad.
So our troubles, we think, are basically of our own making. They arise out of ourselves, and the alcoholic is an extreme example of self-will run riot, though he usually doesn't think so. Above everything, we alcoholics must be rid of this selfishness. We must, or it kills us. God makes that possible. And there often seems no way of entirely getting rid of self without his aid. Many of us had moral and philosophical convictions galore, but we could not live up to them even though we would have liked to. Neither could we reduce our self-centeredness much by wishing or trying on our own power. We had to have God's help.
Okay,
This
and Gail, I'm thinking of you when I hear that line. You know, you were talking about those ladies you were working with, reading windy books and indulging in windy arguments and living in moral and philosophical convictions galore. Okay, we could have, if I could have stayed sober on moral and philosophical convictions galore, I would never have had to come to Alcoholics Anonymous. But my problem, brothers and sisters, is not that I don't know things. My problem in Alcoholics Anonymous is that I don't do things. Okay. And that's what we're really talking about here in step 3. We are talking about beginning to take action. What action? Those 12 steps that we just read. Okay. Now, I used to not like that. When people would say, well, step 3 is really a decision to just move along with the rest of the steps, I would think, okay, maybe that'll work for someone simple like you. But for me, you see, I'm a highly complex intellectual human being. It's much more complicated for me. In fact, it was so complicated, I would often go have a drink to think about it. Okay. That's how that worked. Okay. And in reality, what I needed to do was just shut my mouth and start taking actions in Alcoholics Anonymous. AA didn't work for me when I needed it. AA didn't work for me when I wanted it. AA only works for me when I will do it. And we are making a decision to start taking these actions. Okay. And we'll talk more about that as we finish up tonight. Brad, back to you.
This is the how and the why of it. First of all, we had to quit playing God. It didn't work. Next, we decided that hereafter in this drama of life, God was going to be our director. He is the principal, we are his agents. He is the father and we are his children. Most good ideas are simple, and this concept was the keystone of the new and triumphant arch through which we pass to freedom.
So I just want to say the idea of me playing God, this is the how and the why of it. You know, it's a pretty important direction. First of all, what's the first thing we have to do? The first thing we need to do is be convinced that any life run on self-will will always end in collision. We had to stop living life on self-will. Then the next thing it says is we first of all, we had to quit playing God. And I would think, what are you talking about, playing God? Like, you mean like those guys that I lived with in the psych ward that thought they were Jesus? Like, I don't understand what you mean when you talk about playing God. What does that mean? Okay. The way that I understand that for myself is to think about what I've talked about, little King Kevin, the king that wants it all the time, my way, exactly how and when I want it, all of the time. God is a king. Our Father is a king. Would you guys agree with me on that? Amen. Our Father is a king. I think about me. I have to stop playing king. I have to stop thinking that I am in control of everyone and everything, and that that I deserve special treatment, that the rules don't apply to me, so on and so forth. Okay, we have to stop doing that. Now it says God is going to be our director. Okay, he's sitting out there. He's got the script. He knows the beginning, middle, and the end. He knows all the characters. God's going to be the director. Now be careful. Because one of the things that I have done and can continue to do in Alcoholics Anonymous is, rather than God be the director, what I'm going to do is intellectually consent to the idea of God, and I'm going to give God a part in my play. I'm still the director, but God can have a part in my play. Okay? And it doesn't work that way. God has got to be the central fact of my life. And when I live that way, on page 25, you can go read that. When God is the central fact of my life, everything that orbits around that works very, very well. When I try to be at the center, everything's a horrible mess. Okay. Brad, back to you. Oh, here, this next part that we're going to read about having a new employer. This is the employment contract. This is very important. When I take sponsees through this is one of the things that I talk about in depth. This is employment contract that we're going to enter into with God right now. Brad, read it for us, and then I'll comment on it.
When we sincerely took such a position, all sorts of remarkable things followed. We had a new employer. Being all-powerful, he provided what we needed, if we kept close to him and performed his work well. Established on such a footing, we became less and less interested in ourselves, our little plans and designs. More and more, we became interested in seeing what we could contribute to life. As we felt new power flow in, as we enjoyed peace of mind, as we discovered we could face life successfully, as we became conscious of his presence, we began to lose our fear of today, tomorrow, or the hereafter. We were reborn.
Okay, God is our new employer, capital E, employer. That means we're talking about our higher power, capital E. He will provide what I need. Why? Because I'm such a swell guy and God should get up on tippy toes to make life rainbows and kitty cats for Kevin? No. What's my end of the bargain? God will provide what I need if I keep close to him and perform his work well. First of all, what is his work for me? 12 steps. That's why we read the 12 steps before we're making this decision. That is God's work for me, those 12 steps. Now, how do I keep close to him? Prayer and meditation, obviously. How am I going to have a relationship with someone if I'm not communicating with them? Okay, I'm going to talk to God. But most importantly, how do I stay close to God? By staying close to you, by staying involved in the fellowship of the Spirit, okay, in Alcoholics Anonymous. Recovery thrives in connection to others. That's why we have a home group. That's why it's so important. All the great work that Danelle and others are doing in the unity, creating these unity events at primary purpose groups. So important. Recovery thrives in connection. Addiction thrives in isolation. That's why COVID was so dangerous for so many people. That's why so many of us died during COVID, because it thrives in isolation. God will provide what I need if I keep close to him by staying close to you, prayer and meditation, and performing his work well, the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. That makes sense, you guys? Brad, back to you. What we're going to read right now, guys, is the step 3 prayer. Sorry, Brad. We're going to read the step 3 prayer. We're going to read through it. Then we're going to do this prayer together tonight. We're going to get down on our knees, humbly on our knees, as we read in step 7 in the original manuscript. We're going to get down on our knees. We're going to talk about this prayer.
We were now at step 3. Many of us said to our Maker, as we understood him, God, I offer myself to thee, to build with me and to do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always. We thought well before taking this step, making sure we were ready, that we could at last abandon ourselves utterly to him. We found it very desirable to take this spiritual step with an understanding person, such as our wife, best friend, or spiritual advisor. But it is better to meet God alone than with one who might misunderstand. The wording was, of course, quite optional, so long as we expressed the idea, voicing it without reservation. This was only a beginning, though if honestly and humbly made, an effect, sometimes a very great one, was felt at once.
Okay, so you'll see here it says the wording was, of course, quite optional so long as we express the idea of voicing it without reservation. What we do at Primary Purpose Group, because we love that old school AA, man. We love that 1935 to 1940 Alcoholics Anonymous, baby, where you had to do the 3rd step prayer with Dr. Bob in the room upstairs before you were even allowed to come to the meeting. We get together as a group at PPG in the back room, and we all get down on our knees and we say the 3rd step prayer together. We say it all together as it's written in the book. And then what we ask people to do is to make their own surrender to God in their own words, to express the idea of voicing it without reservation. Brothers and sisters, it's when I stopped talking about God and I started talking to God that my spiritual life began to change. You guys with me on that? Okay, so I want to right now, we're all going to get down on our knees. We're going to say the step 3 prayer together. We're almost at 7 p.m. I just want to say 2 more things. I have been told that the entire thrust of Alcoholics Anonymous can be summarized in one line in this book, in this prayer rather. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. I've been told that the entire thrust of everything we're trying to do in Alcoholics Anonymous can be summarized in that one line. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. Okay? The other thing I want to point out, similar to the employment contract, this prayer, this is not a something for nothing deal. This is not a God, do this for me because I'm such a swell guy. And I'm a something for nothing kind of person. That's what I bring to AA. Front me the dope, I'll pay you later. Give me the bottle, put it on my tab. Okay? And I can't do that in AA. I can't run game on God. So God, you do this for me, I go to work for you. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them will bear witness to those I will help. God, you do this for me, I'll go help your children, man. That's the deal that we're making. Okay? And so at Primary Purpose Group, we say this prayer together. And then at the end, when someone is new and they're doing that prayer, or they're doing a refresh on their prayer, we ask them the question, who do you work for now? And the answer, God. G to the OD, baby. G to the OD, baby. G Dizzle. All right. So now, guys, let's all get down on our knees together, and we'll say the step 3 prayer. Ready? God, I offer myself to thee to build with me and to do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me from the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to thy would help. Thy power, thy love, thy way of life. May I do thy will always. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Okay, and one of my favorite stories about step 3 that someone told me one time, very simply, this is an AA classic. There's 2 frogs sitting on a log out in the woods, okay? And one of the frogs makes a decision to jump off the log. Okay, so again, 2 frogs on the log. One of the frogs makes a decision to jump off. How many frogs are there left on the log? There's 2, because all he did was make a decision. Nothing has happened yet. And next, what's the next line? Next we launched. Okay? And that is the beginning of step 4. How do I know when one of my sponsees is truly done step 3? Because they got a pen and a piece of paper and they started step 4. That's how that works, man. All right? So I love you all, man. That is the end of the study for tonight. Thank you, everyone. We're going to close with the Lord's Prayer. Don't run away.